All right, we are going to go ahead and get started about a minute early here so we can get everybody joined up to audio, do all those Zoom updates that you need to do before you get joined here. First off, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day. Some of you are still at work, some of you may be on your lunch break, so thanks for tuning in and listening to this webinar all about Nicaragua. But as we are allowing people to join here, you'll see I have some co-hosts with me. We'll make some introductions here in just a minute. But in the meantime, if you will check out, get control there of your keypad or wherever you're using to control your phone, laptops, whatever, and join us as we go through this presentation by answering some questions, some polls that we have here. This is just to help us get to know you better and also to tailor this presentation to you and to what your needs are. So here is our first two questions of the presentation here. What inspired you to explore Nicaragua? So what is your goal in learning more about Nicaragua? Do you just love learning about other countries? Are you looking to make a move to another country? Maybe it's an investment opportunity that you're looking at. So just check out the poll questions there. You can pick one that best describes what your reason was for joining us on this webinar today. And then there is a second poll question there, is how would you describe yourself? So think about how you react to certain situations, maybe things that push you outside your comfort box a little bit, and answer that question truthfully, because at the end of the day, you want to find somewhere where you feel like you fit in really well. And countries, Nicaragua is one of the ones that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, but countries are different in how they accept foreigners into their country, and we want to help guide you in a place that makes the most sense for you, and within that, communities as well. So, all right, we're seeing some answers come in here. We see that some of you are feeling fairly laid back about awkward situations or times when you have to think outside the box. A little bit of a mix, maybe. Snowbirds. Yeah, snowbirds, digital nomads. Very cool. Relocation permanently. We've had a lot of people that have reached out to us, I guess, in the last year or so, asking about places they can go and feel at home in another country. So very cool. I'm going to give you maybe about 10 more seconds. I know we have some more people joining here to get these polls answered. And just so you all know, we are recording this presentation. If you have to jump off at any point, just rest assured we'll be sending you an email with highlights, recordings, and things like that. You'll get it by the end of the day tomorrow. So just know that if you have to jump off, we will be happy to get that over to you.
And if you're having any trouble hearing us too, please let us know in the Q&A section, because last time we had a little bit of audio glitches, but hopefully we've got that nailed down this time.
Yeah, and hopefully you can see us. So yeah. The last time we're referring to is that we did a relocation webinar that was very general to just moving outside of your home country. So if you're interested in that, please let us know that as well. We'll be happy to send it to you, but you can see us today. So hopefully we're coming through loud and clear, but let's go ahead and get going here. My name is Ali Rodriguez. I am a US expat from Texas, in fact, that moved to Central America about 4 years ago. So my journey actually started in Belize and made the move to Panama here about 3 months ago. It feels like it's been forever, but it really was fairly recent. And, you know, I was the black sheep of my family. I was the one that, you know, everybody was like, well, why are you moving? Why would you move from where you are in the United States? Why would you do that? And there was so many reasons, right? You find your own reasons, you find your tribe, and you go where it makes you happy. So here I am in Panama. I am joined today with the co-founder and Canadian expat, Patrick Hebert. Patrick.
All right. Is that my cue?
that was a good solid transition. Yeah.
But first of all, we're in Panama, just happen to be in Panama City right now, but you know, I'm a resident of Nicaragua, have been for many years. Kind of moved down and, well, started my move. My move was a little of a transition, wasn't a one like break point at any given time, but 2005, kind of started coming to Nicaragua on a more regular basis. And then kind of, I don't know, 2012, 13, 14, or whatever, became a resident. And my background was actually in software, and I was able to kind of do things from home and wanted to travel around the world, and landed up in Nicaragua as one of the places that we visited with my kids, and just fell in love with the country, and the people are super friendly and lots of things to do. And obviously, as a Canadian, I love the climate. I grew up in Manitoba in Canada, which is a central province where they get temperature swings of -40 to +40 over the season. So that's in Celsius, and so which is -40 to 100 degrees or whatever. So it's warm in summer, but it's horribly cold in the winter, and I just got tired of that, and ultimately moved to the west coast of Canada, to Vancouver Island, but then down here to Nicaragua, Panama. I'm a resident of a few countries down here, but Nicaragua has my heart because that was the first country that I became a resident in Central America, and I just love it. So that's kind of my story.
Perfect. I love it. And we'll kind of put all the pieces for you together for you in the next couple of slides, so you understand how we all are here with you today. But we also have with us Andrea Martinez. Andrea, tell us a little bit about your journey to the region.
Okay, so thank you, Ali. I'm so happy to be able to talk to everybody and tell my experience and the experience of these wonderful people that are with me. Well, my journey began, as it says, I'm a pediatrician, and I worked in Ecuador as a pediatrician. And in 2016, there was an earthquake. I told this story in the relocation, but in case you guys weren't there, there was an earthquake, and we went to the site where the earthquake happened. And another thing that we did was look online for foundations that were helping people with donations and supplies. And that's how I found Patrick's foundation that is called Help Them Help Themselves. I wrote to him, and he was telling me that they were located in Nicaragua, and he showed me all the missions and things that they were doing in that foundation. So I thought that it was awesome. That was the kind of job that I wanted to do. So he said, why don't you come and join us for one of the medical missions? So I said, okay, that's awesome. And I never been to Central America by that time. I've only been in South America, but I didn't know, the only country that I knew was Panama. So practically Patrick, ironically Canadian, introduced me to Central America. So I went to Nicaragua and did the missions. And it's important you know that Patrick and I are married. So we met like that, and we started doing the missions. And practically, because we were dating, we decided that either he would go to Ecuador or I would go to Nicaragua. But I love this kind of work that he was doing over there, so I decided to move to Nicaragua. And that's how we started living there. He already been living there for 6 years already. And after that, we had to move because of work. So we lived in Nicaragua, then Belize, and right now we're in Panama, but we still have a home in Nicaragua. So for me, it's like my second home. So that's a little bit about
second to Ecuador.
Exactly.
We're working on making it first.
Perfect. Thank you for your story, Andrea. And just to put all the pieces together here, Patrick, why don't you tell us about your team?
Yeah, I mean, this is a part of the Eco Villages team. We're not going to focus on the company. This is not a sales pitch webinar. This is talking about the country of Nicaragua. But my son Spencer on the second photo there, and I are the ones that founded the Eco Villages company. We design communities for developers and landowners that are minimalist, eco-sensible, and sustainable. And also kind of a fourth pillar in there is freedom oriented. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go along. You obviously can see Andrea there. Juan is our finance director. Herman is our chief architect. We have a team of architects. Actually, in an office based in Managua in Nicaragua is where our design team's centered from. And then there's Ellie's face covered with the video. I don't know if that's what everybody else is.
It'll be on the recording, but yeah, it is. I think it's me at least. But yeah, that's our team and kind of how we all fit together and why we're all here together to offer this information to you guys.
And again, there's a slide in here. We can, anybody interested in Eco Villages and what we do is, we're proud of the communities that we design, and obviously would love to have people as neighbors that are relocating down, but you have to find what's right for you. And so we're just going to talk about the country and the communities as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so here we go. Poll number 2. Question number 2. What is it about Nicaragua that sparks your curiosity? Nicaragua is not a country that comes up very frequently at being at the top of people's lists. So
More so now than ever, I think.
yeah, no, absolutely. I would say so,
reasons.
absolutely. And tourism is picking up there and things like that. But what is it about Nicaragua that piqued your curiosity, that said, you know what, I think I want to learn a little bit more about this country? Is it where it's located? Are you a tropical person? You want to be by a beach? Is it cost of living? Are you looking to find a place that you can live like a king on a normal budget? I guess what's normal these days, right? Is it quality of life? Are you looking to either change of scenery? Are you looking for, something like cost of living also plays into that? But if a budget is what's most important to you, I would say that's more of a cost of living. Quality of life, meaning slower paced, maybe getting out of the rat race of, North American living. Is it residency options? Each country has a little bit of a different kind of set of requirements to obtain that residency. Are you looking as an investment opportunity? Where is the best return on investment that I can anticipate? Are you an adventurer? Do you love to get out and explore the country that you're looking to move or own in? And culture and community. Something I would say, and you'll probably hear it throughout this presentation, is that culture and community are so very important when making the decision to move. And you want to be accepted. You want to feel like part of a community. That like-mindedness. So is that important to you? Champion of freedom. Patrick, I'll let you explain that one a little bit here in the next couple of slides. Or the safest country in Central America. That probably blows your mind, but it is true. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that in a couple of slides. So
It's very diverse.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of
It is
responses
very.
spreading all over the whole thing. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, a lot of you are looking at the cost of living aspect and quality of life, but wow.
Maybe in the recording or in the email that we send out after this with the recording in it, we can talk a little bit about what the poll results were.
Absolutely. I am
So
seeing
I
a lot of.
Everybody gets to see it. Just we're special.
Well, actually, here what we can
show it to
do.
them.
Yeah, we can. Let me go ahead and end the poll here, and I can actually share those results with you. So I just don't think this will be in the recording. So you guys that were attending live today, I think you get to actually see the poll results here. But so you can just see.
We can share it in the recording too. I mean, last time we went for 2 hours doing this, so we probably should pick up the pace.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of champion of freedom, and the other one that is like the highest cost of living too.
Oh, location is a good one. Okay. Anyway, so we're going to do these polls throughout the presentation and just kind of get where your thoughts are, so we can help better guide it into a direction that makes sense for you. But all right. So you're here to explore common relocation questions. We are going to talk the truth, the good, the bad, the ugly of Nicaragua, and just bring you one step closer to determining if Nicaragua is a good fit for you. So Andrea, where is Nicaragua?
Nicaragua is in Central America. As you can see in the map, it has 2 coasts. It has the Pacific coast and the Atlantic coast. So it has a Caribbean side and a Pacific side. They use Cordoba. The exchange of Cordoba currently, I think, is 38 to
35-ish.
35 to 1.
But it's important to know too that they'll take US dollars anywhere, and US or Canadian credit cards or debit cards, or you can use them in ATMs and everything. So Cordoba is used, but it's just as acceptable to use US dollars. I like to use Cordobas because I don't know, just it's a cultural thing. I don't want to be seen. I think if you look at me, you can tell I'm not Nicaraguan national, but I like to use Cordobas. It's part of the experience, right?
Yeah, it borders Costa Rica on the south, and on the north is Honduras, and the main language is Spanish. But you don't have to worry because many people ask us when they move to Nicaragua about the language, if they have to learn Spanish, but the reality is that the people there are very friendly, and they try to help you and to understand you. You can ask Patrick. He's been living there for more than 10 years, and
and my Spanish sucks, according to Andrea. I actually think I get by. The reality is Spanish is going to rub off on you if you're living there. I mean, you're going to pick up words, but I get by. I go to villages all the time to help them help themselves or whatever, looking at land or something. And I never have any problem communicating. A lot of it with hands and, knowing a few. I know a lot of nouns, but I can't string the whole sentence together very well. But I get by, so I wouldn't really concern that. Make that a high concern.
And for them, it is very, very common to see expats coming to the country now more than ever. Yeah. So they know that they have to help you in a way, like to try to understand you. So.
Well, one thing about Nicaragua too, I think I mentioned it in the other webinar we did last week, but Nicaraguans are very accommodating even if you can't speak Spanish. And I traveled to some countries, not to beat up on any particular country, but went to France and not being able to speak French. It was hard to get by because nobody wanted to even, acknowledge I was there. So, if you're in Nicaragua and you can't speak Spanish, they'll work with you to try to get, something understood. So that's part of the friendliness of the people too, right? They're not going to diss you and say, no, we're not talking to you because you can't speak Spanish.
Right, and something you touched on there was why there are people moving to Nicaragua right now, a lot more now, so than ever. We've already said that, I think, like 3 times. But so why are people moving to Nicaragua, do you think?
Well, right at the moment, I think where you've got Champion of Freedom on there, we don't ever like to talk politics in these webinars. We don't like to, there's enough divisiveness in the world, and we like to get along with everybody. But the reality is, some of the countries around the world, and frankly, my country, Canada, right now is acting differently than they've acted in my lifetime, pretty much. And so, I make no bones about it. I'm a libertarian. I didn't realize that until a couple of years ago when COVID started, but now I know. And I'm really not big on heavy government overreach. And it's funny because Nicaragua is, quote unquote, a socialist country, but it's probably it was probably the most free country during the whole COVID thing. They didn't do lockdowns. They didn't do mandates. If a business didn't want to let people in without a mask, that was up to the business, but it wasn't a government rule. So I appreciate that, and a lot of people appreciate it. And then, when the mandates just kept going and going and going, I think more and more people just are, getting sick of it. And so what we're seeing from our business, which is, designing communities for people to move into, I would say we've had a 10 times jump in 2021 over previous years in the number of people coming down. I don't know the exact statistics on immigration into Nicaragua, but I know from my friends that are immigration lawyers that they're swamped. They can't keep up. I mean, it's great business for them, and it's good to see, because when I was coming down to Nicaragua in the early 2000s, people thought it was crazy. I was going to get abducted or something, and it's like, and I was bringing my small kids at the time, but I did my research and I realized it was a safe country. It was safer than the ones that everybody else tends to go to. And so, the freedom nature of it, the safety, the quality of life. I mean, you have such a higher quality of life than you can in a typical first world, US, European, Canada, Australia type of country. I mean, just, it's the cost of living is so much lower that you can just do so much more with the money that you have.
Make your dollar go a little bit further.
A lot further.
The weather is also.
Well, there's the weather, and I said as a Canadian. You as an Ecuadorian, it's pretty similar.
It's similar, yes. And the culture is very similar. That's why I felt like at home. But many people, that's why I was seeing snowbirds, and they like to go, not necessarily leave the whole year, but on their winter months, we have people coming a lot and stay for 3-4 months and have a property there, and the rest of the year they rent it. So we see that a lot too.
Yeah, and something else I would just point out is on these slides, there's a lot of information. Don't feel like you have to read it all right now. It's there so that when you are going back and reviewing the slides and you want something to look at and jot down notes and things like that, that you can do that. But we're going to hit on some of the highest points and things that we feel, they feel it was the most important to hit on. Then,
yeah, and the other thing, sorry, I did mention there is that, this is all subjective, right? These are comments that we put together and things that we've focused on, but everybody's experience in any country is different than somebody else's. And so, if you say, well, that's not exactly like that in this town, it's like, well, you're probably right. It's not. But it's hard to do a webinar on the whole country. Try to do a webinar on the US, right? I mean, there's
Right.
a thousand different cultures within there. And so it's not easy to do it. And, San Juan del Sur is different than Granada, is different than Leon, different than Chinandega. Corn Islands are radically different. So, there's so much difference that it's hard to put all into one webinar.
Absolutely. All right. So speaking of quality of life and cost of living, when we were putting together this slide specifically, being somebody that's relocated before, things you think about as far as how am I going to live once I get there? What is my grocery bill going to look like? What are my utility bills going to look like? So we put together just some of the most frequently asked kinds of costs that you can build into your monthly budget. I know on there's an LG TV. I know you're, I did, but I've now bought TVs in 2 different Central American countries. So knowing those ins and outs of what, you don't want to get ripped off, right? That's the mentality is I'm going to go into this country and I'm going to buy something at a much higher price point than I would in my home country. And that's the truth, because there's import duties that are tacked onto those, goods. So for example, like the LG TV, that $1,400 price point, that was something I looked up, on a Best Buy website. That's what you can expect to pay at Best Buy. Whereas at the Price Mart in Nicaragua, Price Mart, for those of you that don't know, it's like a Costco or something like that. Price Mart had the same TV listed at about $1,700, which is an increase of 20%, which comes out to what they normally charge to import.
Yeah, very similar to
yeah.
But I think the one thing, well, there's a lot of things, and this is one slide that people go, I don't pay $1.10 for my domestic beer or whatever.
Right.
I like, again, we're trying to generalize here, but the one thing I think that we're trying to be conservative. Like, if you want to go buy eggs, those are both kind of like store-bought eggs. If you want to go buy eggs from the market, the outdoor market, it's going to be a lot less expensive than that. So, we tried to be comparing apples to apples, so to speak, or eggs to eggs. But I think the one thing that really we didn't put on here, and now that I'm seeing it, I'm just thinking about it for next time. The cost of labor is so much less. So, for instance, if you need a repair on your car or something, in North America, for example, your car parts sometimes are a small part of the fee. It's the mechanic's time at $100 and some an hour to work on it. And if it's like a 6-hour job, it turns out to be an expensive job. Where in Nicaragua, for the most part, the labor costs are so much lower that, I've had, transmission replaced on my truck, and, whatever the cost of the transmission is the cost of the transmission, but the labor would be like $63 or something. Whereas in Canada, for me, it would have been over 1,000. Right?
Right.
So there's a lot of things where you save a lot that aren't really on this chart, but that, and again, I think I think we have a slide on that we can talk about later, but shopping is one where you choose where to shop, or in our.
I guess that this cost of eggs is like if you go to the supermarket in Managua in the mall.
Right. It's comparable to a market of Walmart or something. Yeah. And so you can really adjust whatever lifestyle you're thinking of living, and a lot of these costs also will change depending on where you are in the country, but also how you're getting around. What is your transportation cost going to be? Are you making these long trips, which means more gas, or are you in a beach community where you can walk around with your flip-flops and shorts and you can get everywhere pretty much by walking? So just take that into account when you're considering the different places, different locations.
One big story I was going to point out before you change the slide here, the cinema ticket prices. If you're paying $6.50, for instance, in Managua for a movie, that means you're in the VIP section, which means you're in a big armchair and they're bringing you drinks to your seat, which is a really nice feature that frankly you don't get in North America. At least I've never been able to.
You do, but it's not $14.75 a ticket.
I never had wine brought to me in a theater in North America, but I have in Managua. So.
Yeah. And just again, hear about the organic fruits and vegetables. I know Patrick has a lot of stories, but one of the ones that I like the most, because I am a former Texan, is your story about the Texan rancher that talked about organic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously organic fruits and vegetables, organic food in general, non-GMO foods and things like that are big in people's minds a lot of times now. Free range eggs and that sort of thing. But it was just a story I told the last webinar we did, but really, it was interesting because I have a farm up by Coseguina volcano, and a group of Texas farmers were coming to Nicaragua, and they were going to teach the Nicaraguans how to farm and talk about pesticides and herbicides, and tell them how to use them and that sort of thing. And I had peanuts on my farm at the time, and when we were looking at the peanut farm, there was some kind of beetle that was affecting the peanut plants. And the Texas farmers were, oh, you need this kind of pesticide to get rid of that. And the Nicaraguan farmers were very kind of shy, sort of culturally shy, I guess, thinking the experts are coming in to teach us something. And then, finally the one guy kind of pipes up and says, yeah, well, why would you do that? Pesticides are expensive and don't really like them. And they're like, well, what's your solution? It's like, well, we plant lemongrass every 5 or 6 feet, 2 meters, and the beetles don't like that. And that was his answer. Lemongrass grows everywhere, so it was basically a free way of getting rid of the beetle, right? and organic way of it too. So, it was funny because at the end of the day, the Texans basically said it. We kind of all went out to drinks after that, and it's like, well, we were apparently the students today. So.
I'll admit it, we were the students at that point, but it's just a different way of thinking.
Yeah, and organic fruits and vegetables are so prominent there because most farmers can't really afford the pesticides and herbicides, so they get less produce out of their farm, but it's always 99% of the time it's pretty organic.
Oh, and they always taste so good.
They taste great, and
right.
You can find the difference. They're not huge, but they're like they're real size. So yeah, and they sell their products to the local markets, and if you wanna lower even more your cost of living, you go buy in those local markets, and you help the small farmers
and
too.
Being Canadian, to be able to go and just pick bananas and mangoes and things off your backyard.
Yeah, even nice in your own backyard, you can have that.
The mango trees one tree produces like a year's worth of mangoes sometimes.
Yeah,
you have to give them away.
Jeez. When we go to Andrea's parents' place, we have to dodge the mangoes on the front yard to get to the house.
They can hit your.
And so another big one that people talk about is safety. It's hard to, again, these are all of our experiences, but we really, really encourage you to get your boots on the ground, go visit for yourself. Don't listen to what the media tells you. Don't even listen really to what we're telling you. I mean, you can take with what we're saying as lightly or as heavy as you want, but at the end of the day, you have to feel comfortable. So we really do encourage you to go and explore Nicaragua, explore the different cities and communities that you are contemplating, and see how you feel. But I can say that it was hard in the beginning because people are like, why would you move to Central America? Don't you know there's like everybody's getting murdered and kidnapped and all of these bad things are happening, when in reality, if you just, there in San Antonio, if you go down the wrong street, the same types of things could happen to you. So it's really a matter of common sense. But we have a little bit more specifically about Nicaragua here for Patrick to kind of talk with you about.
I apologize, it's always me talking, but I guess I've been in Nicaragua the longest, so I'm probably the least interesting guy on the planet to listen to, but I got the facts, so I got the experience. So with safety, a lot of these slides are the same slides that we were talking about, last week, but we're focusing on Nicaragua today, so we can talk a little bit more in depth about each one of them specific to Nicaragua. But generally, and it changes a little bit from year to year, but generally Nicaragua is the safest country in the Americas next to Canada. And and that I think said a lot for when I was looking and doing the research of where did I want to bring my young family to travel in the most and potentially move to. Safety was a big concern of mine. And if you compare the countries, you'll see Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, they're all fairly similar. Honduras and El Salvador have a higher crime rate, similar to Cleveland and St. Louis, Missouri. But are you afraid to go to Cleveland? I'm not, but it always is, to me, it's just, you got to think relative. And frankly, in Cleveland, you'll be as safe in a certain situation, but not safe in another. I mean, if you're a drug dealer at 2 a.m. in Cleveland, I'm sure it's not safe. well, same would go for you in a city in Honduras. So, but Nicaragua, by all standards, is one of the safest, if not the safest country in the Americas, next to Canada, and very close as well. So, I mean, the other thing that I like about the graph on the right-hand side is really, to me, that one's a perception thing. Like there's no hard numbers. It's crime and theft is a major problem for doing business. So you go out and ask, 1,000 business people, does crime impact your business? And I found that interesting that in this case, Nicaragua is actually lower than Canada in terms of, if you have a coffee shop in Calgary, Alberta or something, or Toronto or whatever, you're technically, by surveying people, they're more concerned with crime affecting their coffee shop than a coffee shop owner in Nicaragua would be. So I think, again, it depends on where you go, right? Anytime you're in a sort of a tourist-centric place or whatever, you're going to get people that, see that as an opportunity as well. So I think you just got to use common sense wherever you go. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. I mean, if you're out, you drank too much and you're out at 1 in the morning or something, and it just doesn't feel safe, probably shouldn't be there, right? So I think that's just common sense anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and there's great people in those people you can go to and ask. A lot of times some of the best people to ask are actually bar owners, bartenders, your taxi drivers. They'll be able to say, don't go down that street, don't go there, don't go here. So just asking, and getting your wits about you when you get there is probably the best.
Yeah, and the people are so friendly, and that goes right, I mean, that's a generalization that I get all the time as a Canadian, right? The people are super friendly. But it is, overall, people in Nicaragua are very friendly. I remember the first time I had a friend come down, and he was terrified of being in Nicaragua. He thought we were both going to get kidnapped or go to jail in some, Central American jail. It was scary. But it was funny. So I went around the corner and had a flat tire on my truck, and the police came around the corner and they stopped, and he's like, oh no, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So I don't know, but it's not going to be bad. Right? So they helped. I couldn't find the tire iron, so they helped me find it. They ended up changing the tire for me, because they're like, this is a blind corner. You should probably not hang out here too long. So let's get your tire changed and move on. And, there's no police officer in Canada, I don't think, that would pull over on the side of the road and change your tire for you. Right? So to me, it's just culturally a very friendly, giving location. And, we get criticized on saying, oh, it's all, rainbows and unicorns and stuff. And that's not true. I mean, like any other country, it has its issues. And, but in general, I think, when we're talking in a webinar about generalities, I don't have many bad things to say about the country. So.
Right. All righty. Oh, this is another Patrick one too, but this is kind of the investment potential curve.
Into the picture, Ellie, just sliding out.
Yeah, sorry. And not only my the shortest one, but I'm over here on the end. So
I tried to put a pillow on the chair.
But being a business homeowner that has ownership in real estate in Nicaragua, can you kind of explain what this means? What does this mean to somebody that's looking around the region for investment opportunities?
Yeah, and this is really more about investment than, to have your lifestyle, whatever, in Nicaragua. But, I purchased some properties in various countries down here. And this slide on the show is really about, if you're in the bottom left, there's a lot of potential capital gain because it hasn't been quite as discovered or it's not as popular yet. If you're on the top right, it's more of a mature market, and like the Pacific coast of Costa Rica or Mexico is really, had tourism. I mean, Costa Rica and Mexico were great at advertising their tourism back in the 70s and 80s already. So for 40, 50 years, they've been kind of the top of the food chain when it comes to getting tourists there. So what does that mean? Well, that really drives the prices up. And I would say, if you're buying a condo on the water or something, as an example, in Costa Rica, you're probably paying 4 to 5 times for the similar thing in Nicaragua. So obviously, with that being the case, Nicaragua has more of a chance to rise, percentage-wise, to rise up in capital gain for an investor. But at the same time, if you're purely just buying something for rental return, rental revenue, the ROI on rental, Mexico and Costa Rica, Panama, they're higher up on the scale, and they're going to generate generally a higher return on your investment from a rental perspective. But that's not always the case either. Nicaragua, we have a home in Nicaragua where we're not there that we rent out, and we get a really good return on it, and especially relative to what we paid for it. So you put all that together, right? If you paid $500,000 for a home and you're getting $2,000 a month in rent or something, that's not as good as paying $100,000 for a home and getting $1,000 in rent. Right? So it's all relative, but I think Nicaragua is kind of in a sweet spot, especially right now, because the prices are going up. I mean, there's a lot of people immigrating to Nicaragua. Again, lots of that because of the non-mandate kind of thought, right? And countries like Nicaragua and El Salvador and Honduras are really kind of a good place to invest if you want to see a capital gain over the next years. And I was lucky enough to get into the Nicaraguan market 10 years, 12, 13, whatever it is, years ago, and investing and have done quite well with the investments.
Yeah, and it's not just from an investor's perspective, because there are some of you on the line with us that want to move permanently. And so another point to make is that the cost comparison in the home that you want to be in. Do you want to live on the beach when you get to this new place? Because it's much more affordable than you think. If you're only watching like House Hunters International and they've got the budget of like $3 million, well, people that are middle income can afford these homes in locations and with the kinds of surroundings that are literally fractions of the price. So you can see here, I'm comparing to San Diego, California, just because it's, I guess, the closest in comparison as far as scenery and infrastructure.
Climate, I guess, to some extent.
Right. So you can see there a studio, 1 bath, 432 square feet. It's a condo that's over 50 years old. You can actually see the view is actually of cars from this condo. I mean, you've got a little bit of a beach view there, but it's almost $700,000. Whereas something with incredible views, that is a little bit larger in square footage, your 2-bed, 1 bath, it's new construction, tiny home with your own land. You own the land that it sits on, is about $180,000. So just there, it's out there.
Yeah, and in a closed gated community with security, like all the things that you need, and the quality.
Yeah, and again, like we were talking about, Costa Rica too. Costa Rica would probably fall a little bit to the left on the San Diego side of this price point for that same thing. Right? So even in the regional countries here, Nicaragua is kind of right up there with the best deals. Of course, like I said, that is changing. It's going up. We're seeing that all the time. The demand is rising, and we're seeing occupancy going way up as well in terms of like rental occupancy. So of course that drives the prices of everything up. So right now I still think it's a great time to get in, and I don't see the how to put this politically correctly. I don't see the exodus from other countries ending anytime soon, and I think the influx into Nicaragua will continue to be great.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that, at least for the next
5 to 10 years.
At least, yeah. So we've mentioned climate a little bit. Andrea, you love the climate in the region, so I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, so Nicaragua, as most of the countries in Central America, has a tropical climate, which means that it has only 2 seasons: the dry season, which is sunny and breezy, and the rainy season, which is rain and it's still sunny. The good thing about Nicaragua is that even if it's the rainy season, you don't have rain every day, all day. It is like a rain half an hour and then the sun comes up again. So you would always have the same climate all year around. You don't have to worry about changing your wardrobe according to the seasons. It's always the same. And the nice thing is, like, if you live in the Pacific coast of Nicaragua, you're always going to have even though it is warmer, it's also a lot of breeze from the ocean. So it is a nice place to be. And people always say like, oh, and what about air conditioning? And yeah, you can use that, but also people love the sunny weather, because you can go outside and be near the ocean. You can have a pool, you can do barbecues with your friends. Like, you have more of a community life, right? And well, Nicaragua also has a Caribbean coast. We've been in the Corn Islands, which is a more like white sand, you know. It's a little bit cooler, but still it's warm. We prefer the Pacific coast more.
Yeah, and even on the Pacific coast, there's different microclimates. Like we live in the central coast at a property called Grand Pacifico, and it's drier, quite a bit drier than, you know, San Juan del Sur area, for instance. So, but San Juan del Sur is greener, and because of that, you have, you know, more parrots and monkeys and things like that. Whereas in the mid coast to the up towards the north of the country on the Pacific side, it's drier. So we get a little bit less. How did somebody put it the other day? You guys get less critters there, like, you know, like spiders and things like that, but because it's drier. But at the same time, you know, you can kind of pick your location based on the microclimates to extent too. And
you get turtles,
yeah,
turtle sanctuaries.
we do have lots of turtles.
Yeah, sea
I
turtles.
love turtles. All right, so fun fact number one, we have some fun facts that are sprinkled throughout this presentation. But this first one talks about the largest lake in Central America is in Nicaragua, called Lake Nicaragua. It provides water supply for much of the country. It is one of the largest tourist attractions. And there is I'm not even sure how to say it, but Isla Ometepe.
And even Lake Nicaragua is technically, Colsibolta is the true name. Everybody refers to it as Lake Nicaragua, but I think it's the biggest lake north of Titicaca in South America. So between the Great Lakes and South America, it's a huge lake.
So you have your
so you
oceans.
can get waves on it.
Yeah, you have your oceans, but you also have your freshwater lakes there in Nicaragua to explore.
And Ometepe is a really cool,
right?
yeah, Ometepe is a really cool place. Yeah, back in the day, you know, getting to Ometepe was a little interesting. You were in there in the bilge of a boat, basically with chickens and pigs and things. And the boat shouldn't have been floating. It had so many holes in it, but it's just part of the Nicaraguan experience. But Ometepe is a beautiful island to visit. Very cool, kind of almost its own little culture and little towns. And it's made, it is two volcanoes that make up the island. And so it's very pretty. And you get, you know, there's what's it called? Agua de Oils or something. The eye of water or whatever it's called.
Ojo del agua?
Yeah, something like that. See, I thought you was trying to say. But that's a beautiful place. It's like a little lagoon, freshwater spring lagoon inside by the side of one of the volcanoes. Anyway, really pretty spots on it.
Yeah, and I heard that this lake is so large, just for reference, that the explorers originally thought it was another country. Like they thought they had landed somewhere new. So
yeah, and actually, reference. Like Granada is right on the lake. Granada is the oldest city in all the Americas. So it's got beautiful buildings, beautiful cathedrals and heritage to it. And it used to be kind of the center for, if you go into the islands around Granada, there's you know, the old forts where they would fight off the pirates of the Caribbean. So right. You know, the true pirates of the Caribbean would come up the river, the Rio, and into the lake, and then, you know, kind of attack the city. The city would protect itself with these forts at Masaya and Granada. The Masaya fort now is turned into a market, which is really cool. Like everybody goes and shops there.
Very cool. We could go through the whole history of Nicaragua with you, Patrick.
No, Andrea won't let me. I'm talking about a jet stream like last time. She just cuts me off.
Oh, this is interesting.
Oh, this is your bread and butter as our resident pediatrician here. So tell us a little bit about healthcare in Nicaragua. Again, there's a lot of information on the next couple of slides. We'll hit some of the high points, but of course, if you have any specific questions you wanted answered, please drop those in the Q&A. We'll answer them there at the end.
Yeah, so this is one of the questions that people ask when they move to another country. You want to know which hospitals are nearby, if they're good, if you find good physicians, if they have all the specializations. And the answer is yes, you have really good physicians. The healthcare there is really good. You have private and public care, but I would say that if you want to get an appointment right away, it's better that you use the private health type of healthcare. So if Patrick and I, for example, we use Vivian Pelas Hospital that's in Managua, which is the capital. And there you can have your own doctor, like we have our own cardiologist, gastroenterologist. And the good thing is that it's very personalized, so they can give you their phone number. You can WhatsApp with them if you have any questions. free of charge, even if you bother them through WhatsApp, they just answer you. So that is the cool thing about that you have the choice, right? But for example, if you're living outside the city, each town has also their own health center, their own hospital. So if you have any emergency, you can go there. And then if it's necessary that you need something more complicated, let's say, then they take you to Managua, to the Vivian Palace, or any hospital over there. Everything in the public, as in Canada, it's for free, and the private is the one that you have to pay, but it's not as expensive. Patrick, for example, when I met him, he didn't have health insurance. And I said, why don't you have health insurance? And he said, because it's so affordable. Like I can go and have an x-ray or get an appointment. It's like $60, or it's not more than that, right? So
that was for the whole thing when I got my kidney stones, but an x-ray is like $10, $15 maybe, right? So
yeah, so it's very, very affordable. Even for me, that I've come from Ecuador, healthcare in Ecuador is more expensive than in Nicaragua. It's like it was very surprising for me to see how it was, how much you pay to physicians, or when you want to buy a medicine, it's the same. Especially if you go on towns and want to buy, you go one of those pharmacies that are in the villages. It's so economical. Like Patrick has his medicine, his blood pressure medicine, and he buys like tons of pills there because it's very, very affordable. And you can have health insurance if you want. What we do is like we bought international health insurance. So in case there is something more complicated, like if we have an accident, a catastrophic event, or a very catastrophic type of illness, then we have the option that if we want to be treated in the country, or we can go to any other country to be treated. So that's how we use it. But you find great doctors. The same with the dentists. The dentists over there are very well prepared, and it's incredible all the things that they can do, that after when they give you the receipt, you are like, wow, I can't believe this is the price.
And most of them are trained, elsewhere in the world too, like the US or something. So, I mean, let's be fair here, we don't want to be all, sunshine and rainbows. So the public hospitals are not great most of the time, but that's also specific to the hospital. Sometimes you get really great doctors in a public hospital, but for the most part, they're underfunded. And
so when you say not great, what does that mean to you? Like,
the equipments are not, they don't have every equipment, sometimes you have to wait a lot to get treated. So that's why it's much better to go to the private hospitals, and that's where you find like a great experience. But yeah, it's true. The same with the health centers.
Yeah, and everybody's got their personal feelings on that too. To me, if you can afford as an expat to go to a private hospital, you're offloading, the public hospitals too. Like it's always been an issue for me in Canada. You break your arm or something and you're sitting in the waiting room for hours and hours because somebody had a hangnail or something, and that was up higher on the list. So I would always get very frustrated in Canadian hospitals with the wait times, and obviously the doctors are very well trained and they have all the latest equipment, but it doesn't help you if you can never, eventually when you go home and treat your own broken arm because you're sick of waiting. So, I mean, the reality is I wish Canada would have had this kind of mix of private and public healthcare where, and it's kind of not, it's a bit of a spectrum too, right? There's some better public healthcares and there's some that are, private ones that are less expensive. So you can kind of pick and choose to some extent what, and generally you'll find a doctor or whatever that you really like, and you're going to have to stick to that hospital, especially if it's checkups. But like even the Vivian Palace, which is kind of the biggest and most advanced hospital in Managua, you can get insurance there. And for me, I'm in my mid 50s. I think it was $60 a month or something like that. I was very close to that, right?
The health insurance.
The health insurance.
Yeah, they have
it's specific to that hospital. You can't use it anywhere else.
They have packages for children, adults, and also
guys like me.
And older guys. And yeah, it ranges from $30 a month to $95 a month.
Yeah, and it's not just insurance, or it is insurance, but it's not just if you need it. I think you get you get a head to toe checkup twice a year, and certain tests, blood tests, or something included. So yeah, so you know, it includes more than just emergencies as well. So it's definitely, I never did it because even when I had kidney stones and went through multiple urologists and tests and got all the pills for it and everything, it was still $60-ish anyway. So I figured I'm not gonna have kidney stones every month. I don't need to do this. But you know, if you want to, if it helps you sleep better at night, get insurance. That's it.
The international insurance, I think, would be
Well,
good. That's what we have.
it's good for us because we travel so much.
Right.
We have to. If you're going to Nicaragua, you're going to stay in Nicaragua, get the local insurance. It's less expensive, and you're never going to use what we have if you're inside the country, right? So,
Yeah,
Right.
right.
just, you know,
I like in Ecuador, for example, I have local. I had at that time I had local and also international. So in case I need to stay in the country, anything that happens at appendicitis, I'm not gonna go outside of the country to be operated for an appendicitis. So I stay in the country and the insurance covers me. But if I had something more complicated that the country doesn't have the equipment for, then I use the international health insurance. So
Fair
it depends on what you
like
feel
to be
makes you
very,
feel.
very
Yeah, I am.
And that's okay. The truth is that you can find it there. That's the takeaway.
And now you have me very, very covered.
That's why we have health insurance.
That's why that was good. So, immigration and transportation, I mean, obviously we're hitting these really important topics. And we do want to be respectful of your time. We're not looking to keep you on the line another two. Yeah. So we're going to kind of, some of these slides will kind of fly through, no pun intended here, but so entering Nicaragua can be tricky. This is something we like to bring up to people, is just kind of do some research on the best route for you. But note the validity of your passport. It does have to cover your length of stay, where in some other places, you know, it's got to be, you know, 6 months past your date for any unforeseen stays in the country. But immunizations, yellow fever is required sometimes. Again, it
depends on where you come from. If you're coming from Ecuador, I had to get the yellow fever vaccine because when we put Ecuador, I couldn't get back home to Nicaragua. And now Panama just got added recently. But if you're coming from, but if you're transiting through Panama, for instance, on your way to Managua, then it doesn't matter. If you're going through, you know, if you're staying in the airport, you don't go to the airport, then you don't need it. But anyway.
Yeah, but if you're coming from Canada, the United States, you don't need those.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't ask for any vaccines.
The yellow fever bug can't live in the Canadian climate.
You can get your initial tourist visa for 90 days or less. You get it when you get to the airport, it's $10 US. You do have to show proof of a return flight back from your entry port. And of course you have to declare the cash that you bring in if it's over $10,000. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. But exploring the country, there's lots to do and see in Nicaragua. Obviously there's very diverse parts of the country. We put just some kind of generic figures there about flights and bus and car rental. Taxi, this is fun because I happened to cross a blog from a single woman that was in and exploring Nicaragua, and she said, it took her 30 minutes to get 5 blocks in a taxi because they function as ride shares. So the taxi will pick up as many people as he can carry.
It's part of the charm.
That's how you meet people too.
Yeah, absolutely. So just know that there are lots of different ways to transport throughout the country. Depending on where you're trying to go, you know, does a car rental make more sense if you're planning to do long trips? Or you can probably walk to some of these places, again, depending on where you are, if you're in the big city centers and things like that. But just kind of keep that in mind. What are you trying to do? What are you going to do while you're there? Because there are a lot of things to do in Nicaragua, and you'll see our.
I'm going to reenact this picture.
This is one of the things that made me fall in love with Nicaragua, because you took
I
me
thought it was
to
going to be full of them.
both.
All right.
Oh, good answer.
Now this is actually at the Messiah volcano, and I always find the Messiah volcano funny because when you get there, I mean, it's one of the only volcanoes in the world that's active, where clearly you can see the boiling lava at the bottom, where you can go right up to the edge. In fact, you can drive your car right up to the very edge of it and then get out of your car and look over. But the signs everywhere say you should back your car in, so if it blows, you have a chance to get out faster. And
At least they're honest.
I don't think they have the chance.
I find that funny because I don't think it matters what direction your car is facing. If that thing goes at the time you are unlucky enough to have it go off when you're there, it's probably not going to matter.
Yeah,
And then they tell you to get underneath your car if it goes up. It's like the last place
that's
I want
not
to be.
enough. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna save you.
But the best time to go there is at night because
Yeah.
you get amazing pictures of the lava at night.
Very cool. So those are just some what we would say are the top 7 things. Of course, there's millions of other
Everybody's got
things to
a
do.
different top 7. Those are your top 7.
Yeah. Well, they're a collective top
Yeah, we
7.
love that Granada, to go to the Granada, which is the most, the oldest
Right.
city in the Americas, and León, where you can see a very old cathedral.
That's the
and
oldest cathedral.
the oldest cathedral in the Americas. Beautiful place, is very colonial, and in Granada, yeah, it's very charming. If you like to see more history, culture, those are beautiful cities to go. If you are more adventurous, you can go and do the boarding on the volcano boarding. If you would like to do that, right? We didn't do that because I don't like that much, but other people do.
We didn't do that because I don't like it very much. Right. So, and then of course, once you've had your fun, and if you choose, you need to go back to your home country, just check that flight schedule again. There are frequent cancellations these times. I don't know how to say that, but you know, are you able to get in and out easily and quickly?
One thing you mentioned, and we probably should clarify from the previous slide too, about getting into Nicaragua. It's not really that hard to get into Nicaragua. I mean, they're changing flights all the time, but from Panama, Salvador, whatever, Miami, there's flights. But the one thing currently, and this, I don't want to date the webinar, but this will date it, but currently this is changed all the time, is you do need a PCR COVID test, which a lot of people don't like to get because they stick the Q-tip up to your cerebral cortex.
He's done it many times.
I think I mentioned this last time, but I had 50 PCR tests last year, and I was getting pretty old by that point. But anyway, the beauty of it with Nicaragua is once you have that test, and once you're in the country, there's no mask mandates and vaccination mandates, and nobody asks you about that stuff. So, I mean, people do wear masks in some of the grocery stores and stuff like that. So, you know, but that's a business decision, not the country's decision. So I love it because it's hilarious when we're home in Nicaragua and I walk out of one of our condo, I always feel like I'm forgetting something now. And it's because we've been so accustomed now to wearing these bloody masks that,
It's like,
I feel like, what am I not?
Feel naked without
I forget my pants.
it's like thinking about your wallet. And by the way, we're seeing your questions. At the end, we're going to answer all your questions.
Yes. So those of you
I'm too blind to see the questions.
keep dropping them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end. So we've talked a lot about language and the barrier that it may cause, and we've kind of already addressed that. But I'm just curious to know, how comfortable are you speaking Spanish? I'd love to know kind of what the demographic is here on the line with us. I'm
not answering.
I'm fluent in ordering food in Spanish. That's where my heart lies. But you know, conversational Spanish is something.
That's cool.
I'm in the just winging it group apparently with most other people, so that's good to know.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
there's one other. Let us know in the Q&A. Yes, please let us know in the Q&A.
Let us know what's on your mind there. But you know, a lot of times it is just winging it for me personally. And again, I'm not great at conversational Spanish. I can put together a few words at a time, but I'm pretty good at ordering food, so which is important. All right, so the most of you said you were just winging it, and I love your honesty there. So
And some are somewhat comfortable.
somewhat comfortable. Good for you. So just here are some of the expat communities in Nicaragua. Again, there's several out there, right? But and you know, if these aren't your ticket, these aren't really hitting the spot for you, of course, let us know and we can kind of guide you to another place. But
yeah, I mean, I think we put these on here because they're kind of 3 different styles of
right.
Like, Granada, the old Spanish colonial city is very cool place to live, and you know, I really like the calzada. Is that what it's called? I'm forgetting the word. But basically, it's a restaurant row, a road that's a bunch of restaurants outdoors for the most part.
This is the piazza. I don't remember. Go
Wow,
ahead.
you guys are real experts here today.
No, it's one of my favorite places to hang out. I should be able to speak about it, but no, it's got some great restaurants and bars and things along there, and Grenada is a really kind of cool place to live. And obviously, the Corn Islands is on the Caribbean side, kind of a radical difference from both the Pacific side and the inner cities like Grenada. And then San Juan del Sur is it's by far the most populated tourism area for Nicaragua. It's the surfing culture really kind of grew up that town into a city now almost, and again it's one of the more popular places. But there's Leon's got quite a few expats. Chinandega is growing in expats even further north in the country is. And if you like to be further away from people, there's a lot of places there, Matagalpa and Teca and all coffee country and things like that. Lots of beautiful places.
Right. Yeah. And part of that is if you have a family that you're, as part of this decision that you're making, schools is a big thing, schooling. How are they going to get an education? And we've seen people kind of do a hybrid system, really. A lot of people choose to do homeschooling. There are international schools, which are great for expats because they do teach in dual languages, mostly in English, but then they insert those other foreign languages into their curriculum and things like that. Obviously, private schools, just like private and public hospitals, you're going to see a different level of education quality when you move from public into private and then international. So and then, of course, like I mentioned, there's a hybrid. A lot of people do choose to homeschool their children and maybe send them to a local school or one of these private schools part-time. Another way for them to integrate and pick up that Spanish language is to do some other extracurricular activities. Patrick, what do you know about things like piano lessons and baseball teams?
Well, baseball's hugely popular in Nicaragua. It's the most popular sport in the country, and it's probably the only country in Central America where football is not the most popular. Although soccer is very popular as well. But there's things like that. You want to join a baseball team or soccer team, they're in every village. There won't be any problem doing that. But if you want to do something more like piano lessons, like you're saying, or violin lessons, or some sort of symphony or some kind of instrument or something like that, or ballet or something different, kind of a little different. You're basically going to possibly want to consider where you live, because one of the reasons why we decided to live kind of 45 minutes outside of Grenada or outside of Managua was that we could go to Managua. If we want to do something that is only in Managua, we can do that, and then we can go home in the evening, and we can have dinner and go to a movie in Managua, and then go home and have our peaceful place outside of the city. I mean, if you're down in San Juan del Sur, it's obviously a 2.5 or so hour drive to Managua. So if you were taking one of your children to piano lessons all the time in Managua, that would be a bit of a pain to go that distance. Although, San Juan del Sur probably has many good piano teachers too.
Yeah, but one of the good things about also the expat community is that many people that are coming and also people that want to teach. So we've had in our community, for example, people that want to teach Spanish, people that want to teach English, yoga, some are music teachers. So you can have a community and you guys can start like your own like little city where you can give classes to each other, right? And we also had people that have been homeschooling their kids that come from other countries. They started homeschooling their kids. Remember a family, they were doing it for a year, and the next year they wanted their kids to mix with every other kids. So they started sending them to the private school in Managua.
Yeah, and like the homeschooling hybrid, a lot of people will do, a session, like you said, of homeschooling, and then where we live, there's a lot of carpooling going on, and people, they'll bring their kids to the international schools in Managua. There's German schools, there's French schools. Some of our friends would brought their kids to a French school because the father spoke Spanish, the mother spoke English, and they wanted the kid to be trilingual, so they went and brought them. So there's a lot of options, and I think homeschooling is great, but a lot of people also want to socialize their kids with other kids. Even in the communities, if you're homeschooling, you can still socialize because there's lots of kids around.
Right.
Sorry, wasting too much time.
But this is an important topic, and we did have a question in there about it. So
did we answer the question?
I think it was a little more specific about an actual like school name. So we'll have to look at what place she's looking at and be able to answer that. But fun fact number 2, we're going to kind of breeze through this, but there are street names in Nicaragua. However, they aren't typically used. They're more like recommendations. So it can get kind of confusing if you don't know your way around.
I remember my first property that I bought in Nicaragua, I had to go with a lawyer to get the whole title transfer done. And you know, his business card had, you know, 3rd door past the Texaco that used to have a green door on it.
Oh,
and the Texaco gas station wasn't even there anymore. Yeah. And when I got there, I finally found him, and he said, well, everybody knows where that Texaco used to be. It's like, well, I didn't.
Not if you're new, but
you can have a street name like Carretera, Masaya, Masachapa, but then it's like 11 kilometers east, 10 kilometers west, behind the house of Inesita or something like that, exactly. and people understand it now.
I did get a Christmas card the other day that was sent in 2017. So sometimes the post system works.
Sometimes it does.
There's another fact. Don't use regular post. I mean, there's DHL and
Aeropost. That's what you always use.
And other things like that. There's options.
But or have an address in Managua, like the city.
Yeah, the post box where you can pick it up.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, this is my favorite part, but obviously you want to explore the culture, the cuisine while you're in Nicaragua. It's such a melting pot, but they do stay true to their roots. There's lots of different ways to experience it. I mean, if you're most comfortable with high-end restaurants, there are places that you can go that you'll get that high-end feel, that high-end service, all the way down to your street corner grills, which if you ask me, those are my favorite. I love tacos off of food trucks and things like that. That's a way to really truly experience and immerse yourself into the culture. And not only that, but you talk to the viejita that's cooking, and she can tell you the stories of her lives and things like that. So
you gotta try the naca tamales, which are delicious. The caballo bayo too. Those are very typical over there. Caballo bayo is almost like a little buffet with different types of meat, you know, pork with refried beans, tortillas. Central America has a lot of like tortillas, but they have their own flavors, you know. So you got to try this.
Every country has its own gallo pinto as well.
Gallo pinto, that's like, yeah.
Nicaragua, like every country, claims that theirs is the best. I would have to go. Nicaragua's pretty high on the list.
I love gallo pinto in Nicaragua. It's my favorite.
And of course, the celebrations.
We could probably go through the, you know, a million different celebrations.
Sure.
Latin America is full of
celebrations. We love to celebrate.
Celebrate everything.
You could have slides after slides of the number.
Yeah.
Semana Santa is
every day I wake up and it's another Nicaraguan holiday.
The idea behind this slide was really to kind of show the variety of celebration. I mean, it's not all just, you know, surfing. It's not all just boats, and it's not all just, you know, people in brightly colored costumes. There really is a lot of variety. There's also an international poetry festival. So if you're somebody that really loves poetry, poets from around the world come to this conference. And so just lots of different things to do, because a lot of people don't realize how much there is to do in countries that are still developing, but there really is. So what's your timeline to relocate or own property? This is something that just we thought we would throw in here to kind of get a sense of what you're looking at as far as your timeline. How comfortable are you with taking the next steps? What is the next step for you? Are you ready to go right now? Have you already been researching and doing lots of due diligence on your end? Are you still trying to put a few of your ducks in a row and need a little bit more time to make your next move? Or are you just starting on this journey and are just kind of exploring right now? So definitely we can help you in different stages. Again, we're full of a lot of information. And if we don't have the answer for you, we do know a lot of people that could get it answered for us, and then pass along to you. So perfect.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we maybe didn't mention up front is the reason for these webinars that we're doing really is that, you know, when I was moving to Nicaragua quite a while ago, I would have loved to have not only a series of webinars to go through and see what's up, but also, you know, people that I could send a message to or send an email to or call or whatever. We're happy to do that. I think we really you know, want to make your journeys. We want happy neighbors. So when you come down to Nicaragua, it's a good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. These last couple of slides, we are almost coming here to the end. They're pretty nitty gritty. Again, everybody's scenario is a little bit different about what their end goal is. So we're happy to discuss that with you on a personal basis. There are some residency options there, quite easy to obtain, I would say. But, again, depending on your situation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of Nicaragua is has one of the low, from an investor residency program, is one of the lowest buy-ins, basically, with the $30,000 limit minimum that you have to spend. But if you're buying a home and you're moving there, your chances are you're spending more than $30,000 anyway. So, but countries like we're in right now, Panama, I think it's 300,000, so 10 times that amount, right? So it's difficult if you want to buy a reasonably priced home in many of the countries, and Nicaragua is one of the least expensive.
And you can bring your family, like if you're married, your spouse can be also a resident as a dependent, as well as their kids that are younger than 18 years old.
Yeah, so just some things there. We wanted to put it up here, just to kind of get you thinking about it. Of course, ask questions later down the line.
The only thing I mentioned in the last webinar, I invite everybody to go and see the last webinar too, because we probably mentioned some things in there that we aren't mentioning here. But because there's a lot of Canadians on this webinar, I just want to mention too, from a Canadian perspective, if you lose your residency in Canada and have it in Nicaragua, in Canada, your income tax follows your residency and not your citizenship, which means you can keep your passport as a Canadian, but have your residency in Nicaragua, and you no longer, well, you have to let go of your residency in Canada, but then you no longer have to pay income tax. So you could work in Nicaragua, especially if you work online or something like that in Nicaragua. And if let's say an example, you work online, you have customers that are in Canada and the US, but you're living in Nicaragua as a Nicaraguan resident. You really don't have to pay taxes, income taxes anyway, because if you lose your Canadian residency and you got a Nicaraguan residency, then you're no longer have to pay the Canadian taxes. And because your customers, you're earning funds from outside of Nicaragua, then Nicaragua doesn't tax you on that income. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, which is only really, there may be other countries, but I know for the US, for instance, for you as a Texan, that doesn't apply. Your income taxes follow your passport.
Unless I denounce my citizenship.
Yeah, get rid of your citizenship.
Yeah, it's not as easy as I just don't live there anymore.
Yeah, so for me, I had to sell my stuff in Canada, but I have my Canadian passport, hopefully for the rest of my life. But I have a Nicaraguan, Panamanian, other residencies. So, I can kind of go with the flow down here.
Right. And you did mention a little bit about taxes, which we'll talk a little bit more about, like property tax and things like that in a couple slides. But just remember what he said, because that's addressed on that slide as well. But we're going to move into banking. And again, everybody's situation scenario is a little bit different. But what do you need to do when you get to Nicaragua? Do you need to bank? Do you need a bank account? There's lots of different reasons why somebody would want one or need one. But if you're not planning to be there long term, Patrick, would you say that that's a necessity?
Well, if you're not planning to kind of move down, then I would say probably not. I mean, you can keep your bank account wherever you are banking now, and like I said, debit cards, credit cards, and everything work. It can be a little bit of a pain if you're trying to pay bills or whatever and things. But I mean, we have bank accounts in Nicaragua, we have bank accounts in Belize, bank accounts in Panama, so it's certainly doable. On the bank account side, I mean, I get a lot of questions on kind of, I'm not going to go into depth of it, and please send us emails. We have questions at ecovillages.life. So if you send an email to that, we're happy to answer them. But there's a difference between offshore banks and the local banking system that, for regular bill paying and stuff like that. But just be aware of that, because I get that question of what's the difference a lot, and happy to answer those questions offline because we're taking too much time.
Well, I mean, like I said, we could answer your questions more specifically to what you need and what you want. Whereas this is very general for everybody that's on the line today, but just some facts there on the screen for you. But again, reach out to us, questions at ecovillages.life, and we'll explain a little bit more about that. Patrick touched on the foreign earned income, about Nicaragua does not tax foreign earned income. That's income that's earned outside of Nicaragua. You can see some other benefits there below it. Property tax is very, very low. So if you do decide to own the property that you're either living on or working out of, then of course your property tax is lower than what you would expect in places like Texas or California or other places like that. Income tax is very, very specific to people and what you're doing. So we don't want to get too deep into that.
We're not tax accountants and don't want to say anything, wrong. We deal with our own taxes and things in these countries, but happy to kind of stay at 30,000 feet or point you in the direction of tax attorneys if that's an issue for you. But I mean, things like property tax, for instance, say like 1% of property value, that's fairly accurate. The thing is, it can be either 1% of what you paid for it annually as a tax, or they may assess it. And generally, if they assess it, they're going to assess it at less than that. So your taxes are actually lower. But there's no hard and fast rule in here, so we don't really want to try to apply this to everything.
And the one I do want to point out is if you are looking to retire, meaning you're not going to be working in the country, you're not going to be producing an income outside, you're just going to be living off of your pension as a retiree, you are allowed to import household goods, cars, and building materials tax-free. There are some different dollar amounts that are applied to each of those. So again, just let us know if that's something that you want more information about, and we'll be happy to send it over to you. This one I threw in here just because coming from Texas, mosquitoes, I hate mosquitoes. They're the worst.
From anywhere you hate mosquitoes.
No, well, and then I moved to Belize, and Belize was even worse. But Mosquito Coast wasn't named after the actual mosquitoes. It was named after these indigenous Amerindians, named the mosquitoes, and they had a wide kingdom that spanned across the coastline of Nicaragua and into Honduras. So would you say that mosquitoes are bad?
Well, again, it's all depending on what time of year and where you are. I mean, one of the things we like about being in a drier area in the central coast is that it is much less mosquitoes, if not gone mosquitoes. But, realistically, most people in the community don't even have screens on their windows. Right? The flies, like house flies, have a kind of 1 week life, and then the fruit flies have a 1 week life of the year, and otherwise there's really not that many flying critters, right? So a lot of people don't have screens.
But if you
are fun fact on the Mosquito Coast, there was a Harrison Ford movie called The Mosquito Coast about this area, and a scientist that goes down there and produces ice, and it's a pretty cool movie. So in fact, that was in the 80s. That was in the 80s, and now I noticed on Netflix they did a new Mosquito Coast series. So
I'll need to go check that out too, for sure, because it's quite interesting as I go and dive into the history of these countries. It's fun what you come across. So here we are. We're kind of at the end here, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. How does it fit on our expat compatibility scale? Again, these are
super subjective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, it also looks like sunshine and rainbows, but on the ease of access, I think that one got dropped down because of the PCR test.
It did, yeah.
and if it wasn't for that, it's not that hard to get to the country.
Right.
Before COVID, it was very easy to get to the country, but flights are changing all the time. You never know what's going on, so it's a bit of a pain with the tests and that sort of stuff. But once you're in the country, it's great.
Yeah, and again, it is subjective. I mean, we put a number on it, but the reality is everybody has different experiences. They have different understandings and knowledge of each of these different topics. So overall, we gave it an A-.
Yeah, and it all depends on how you weight.
Sure.
If cost of living is high on your scale, then this is like 100 out of 100 kind of thing.
Right.
But so it depends.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. We have one more question for you guys before you go, if you're still here with us.
If you mentioned the last one.
Hey, I will say that we're cruising.
We're better than last time.
Yeah. But you do have options in the region. If after today you don't think that that Nicaragua is the right fit for you, or maybe you just want to hear about some of the other countries that are around the Nicaraguan area, please go ahead and let us know that here in this poll. And then stay tuned for the upcoming webinar series. We are actually talking about Belize tomorrow. So in the Q&A section, if you want to just let us know you're interested in joining that Belize webinar, you are welcome to put your, well, no, let's not drop your email there, but in the at the end of this presentation, you can go, there's going to be a QR code in the corner. If you go to that QR code, you can scan it with your phone. There is a webinars tab on our website where you can sign up for any and all of these other country webinars and presentations. So very cool. We have a lot of interest in Panama, actually.
Yeah,
Costa
Panama is-
Rica, El
I think it's
Salvador.
just, I think it's just because we're sitting here.
That's definitely what it
You're
is.
so beautiful. Gosh.
You can see the plant.
The plant.
Our fourth panelist.
Right. So there's the webinar schedule. Essentially, it's every Wednesday and Thursday. We'll be talking about a different country all the way up until 17th of March. So join us for any and all of those that make sense for you. There's that QR code. If you're able to scan it or want to take a screenshot of it and scan it later, you're welcome to do so. Again, questions at ecovillages.life. We'll put you directly in touch with the three of us, as well as you can visit us at www.ecovillages.life.
Some questions.
Yeah, let's get to some questions, and I'm going to read them off to you, Patrick, and I'll let you answer, and Andre, I'll let you answer. Justin, thank you for being part of this. I know, Justin, that you have lots of knowledge as well about Nicaragua.
Oh, yeah, we're on a number of expat Telegram groups and things like that. So, you know, Justin, we were going to have you on here as a special guest, but it just got too busy. The next one you're on.
Yeah, and then he says he uses PokeTalk device, which has helped a lot for, I'm guessing, is that for translation or currency? Justin, I'm not familiar with that, but let us know. What is the education like for high school aged kids? Is the education received at the day school and SJ recognized by universities across the globe?
Well, most of the time it's the international schools that are accredited, you know, in various countries, so that, you know, when your child graduates, they can apply, you know, go to university, college somewhere. Obviously, the public schools would not be that situation.
And some private schools,
some of the private schools
too.
as well.
They might have sometimes relations with international schools. You have, when you go and want to research a school, you can ask in each of them if they have that relation.
Right. Okay, perfect. And if you have anything more specific there, just let us know and we'll get you some more contact information there. Tina says, from your previous slide, this is when we're talking about entering and exiting the country. You are required to have a return flight booked to your home country.
Usually you do. Like,
well, not
even
necessarily your home country. It could be
anywhere.
It's just basically saying that you're not going to overstay your 90-day tourist visa.
You can have a flight to another country or even a bus ticket. So you go, for example, from Nicaragua to Costa Rica. And then
you get like a $27 bus ticket to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
That counts. There's
necessarily
other tips and tricks too that we can tell you.
Yeah, and that's
there's services that you can buy a flight and then cancel the flight. Basically, I'll leave it at that.
You just have to have proof that you're leaving in your 90-day mark.
And the 90-day tourist visa too can be renewed in country. Typically, it's not an issue. They'll generally let you, you know, you can go to the any immigration office and extend it for another 90 days. So you have a half a year basically in total. But, you know, before becoming a resident, I actually, you know, liked that 90-day window because it made me think, okay, where am I going to go? Like get on the bus and go to San Jose, Costa Rica, or, you know, go to Belize or go to Panama or whatever. It kind of forced me to explore other countries down here too at the time. So, you know, it's pretty inexpensive, especially if you're, you know, traveling by land. So you get to see a lot of things. So sometimes it's worth using that 90-day window, and you just have to go out of the country. Technically, you have to go out of the country for 72 hours, but they often don't hold you to that either. So you go to Costa Rica for a day. Good.
So I hope we kind of bundled two questions there, both from Tina and Shannon, about can you get visas for longer than 90 days? Yeah, essentially, you have to.
But you can keep renewing. I mean, every time you leave again. I mean, you can try to go for the third time to renew it without leaving the country, and you may get it or you may not. They might actually announce where you got to go, but you only have to go for, like I said, a weekend and come back. So.
Gotcha. Okay, let's see, Jonathan, thanks for sharing that with us. I understand that your timeline, you're still waiting on getting some things put together so you can get your family moved as well.
Please saying, if masking is a business decision and not a government mandate, we would love to see these establishments, especially specific developments.
Sorry, I don't understand.
And he likes that there's no mandate of.
Yeah, I know it's, again, I'm walking the fence on this one, but it's surprising to me how many people still do wear masks when they don't have to, or how many businesses said, no, if you want to come into our grocery store, you have to have a mask. I'm surprised at that a bit, but I'm okay with it because it's the business or the individual's decision, not the government. So, it is what it is. Right?
Right. Tina, you have a lot of great questions. What does it mean about the $600 rental income from abroad? Is that only applicable once you become a resident? Are you limited to only receiving $600 a month from rental income?
No, that's a minimum in order to get a residency. So.
Right. Yep. And again, we're happy to answer those questions with you one-on-one. Would it be an option to rent a home in Canada and live and become a resident of Nicaragua? I think you kind of answered that again, but.
By renting a home in Canada, I assume you mean owning the home and then renting it out? No. Well, yes, you can become a resident of Nicaragua, but you won't be able to lose your Canadian residency unless you basically get rid of everything. If you have a property, I had a friend that had a little ski place in Whistler, and he had to get rid of it because Canada wouldn't let him lose his residency if he had any problem.
Yeah, but they don't have problems in Nicaragua if they.
No, Nicaragua doesn't care. But if you're going to leave Canada permanently and get a residency somewhere else, you might as well let your residency in Canada go. Otherwise, you're filing a tax return in Canada every year too. So.
If you only have an international bank account from Canada, how would you access large amounts of funds to purchase a home in Nicaragua in cash for full amount?
Well, in cash, I wouldn't probably recommend that. I'd wire it to, either an escrow account from a real estate agent or to the seller if you trust them. But I wouldn't withdraw tens of thousands of dollars in cash. But I guess you could go to the ATM every day, or you can go to the bank and you can go to BAC or you're close to that, or any of the there's like handful of big banks in the country. And you can go there and prove that you have the money or get a bank draft or whatever you want to get cash. But I just wouldn't recommend walking around with a ton of cash anyway, but not necessarily just Nicaragua.
I hope that answered your question. Scenario here. I love it, Chris. Husband and wife with a young daughter are moving to Nicaragua from Canada. We have all of our entry and travel documents to enter the country and are only planning to bring standard luggage. Is it realistic to think that we could fly in and make arrangements to obtain residency, purchase a house, and start living there? Is there anything he can do or must do in Canada prior to coming, or things that they should be bringing?
Well, it's a bit of a hybrid. When I did it, I got my police check and medical check that is part of the residency checklist. I got that in Canada. I went to an RCMP station in Canada, had the police check, and then you had to get that notarized in apostille at the time. And that means it takes time. You gotta get notarized. Sometimes if you want an apostille, that's not really a Canadian thing, so you got to send it to the US, where they'll apostille it. And then what was happening to me is I would get my medical one done, and then my police check would expire. I go back to Canada, get a new police check, and then my medical one would expire. And I had no idea that you could actually have those two things done in country in Nicaragua. So I ended up, somebody told me, no, just go to the Interpol station in Managua, and you can get your police check done there. It was quick. That was good enough for the immigration. And same, I got a medical checkup in the hospital in Nicaragua, and I was, I had like another 3 months to go because they weren't going to expire. So the expiration thing was a pain when I was trying to get it done in Canada. But on the other side, if you need a marriage certificate or something, that's specific to your country. Like if you were married in Canada and you want your spouse to be a dependent on your residency, that one you're going to have to bring from Canada and have it notarized for apostille. So Nicaragua knows nothing about your marriage status or license in Canada, so that kind of thing you have to break down. But the police check and the medical check, I was at least able to do it in Nicaragua. And it's not a long list of things. It is a bit of a list of things, but it's not onerous, right, in terms of stuff.
Right. Okay. Again, Chris, you're welcome to reach out. We can guide you a little more specifically. We do have a residency attorney that we work with that would be very helpful in getting a list of documents and things like that for you.
Yeah, and she'll kind of guide the whole
Yeah.
ship on this, right? And she speaks
Right.
perfect English, so she's very clear, very thorough. I found it. And I definitely recommend it. Like I tried to do the residency thing on my own and got like 99% there, and then something would always be expired or I didn't have the document quite right. And then finally I just broke down and got a lawyer and it was done very quickly. And yeah, it costs you a little bit to do the legal lawyer way, but it's for me, it was worth the lack of headaches.
Yeah, and we're at an hour and a half here, so I don't want to.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I see that
My
there's
story's
some more
technical.
things down there, but I do want to say, Chris, you made a note here about you've already traveled there, you've already been to Nicaragua several times, you're kind of ready for the next steps. We'll reach out to you or go ahead and send us an email. Let us know what your timeline looks like, what you're looking for as far as ownership, purchasing your home and things like that. We are able to help you there. Again, this wasn't a sales pitch. We're not trying to sway anybody one way or the other, just really here to give information. But we do have
and if you happen to be in our neighborhood, which is around Grand Pacifico, we'll be happy to share a Flor de Caña rum with you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tina, again, a lot of great questions. We'll get in touch with you specifically because it does sound like you have a lot on your mind, and I want to make sure that what we're giving you is specific to you. So I think we can go ahead and wrap it up for this one, you guys.
Promise the next one will be shorter.
Well, this one was shorter than the last one, so we did better.
Stop letting me tell stories. It'll be a lot shorter.
We'll send you all a recording with some highlights from the webinar, the full recording, as well as some fast forward kind of marks in the presentation. But of course, here is our contact information there at the bottom. Please do reach out. Let us help you take those next steps. And in the meantime, till the next time.
All right.
Next time.
Next time.
Thanks
Bye, guys.
for supporting us and
See you
joining.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is always the best part because I never can stop it.